been provided with a microphone today so that I don't need to shout, so you can all hear me without me having to raise my voice. My name is Caroline Hargreaves and I'm from the IT Services Division of the University of Manchester. My role currently is a business relationship manager, but 12 months ago I was a project manager of a project, and it's that project that I'm here to talk about today. It was called the Secure External Collaboration Project, and I'm going to talk through some of the journeys we went through as part of that project, and actually not from the PM project manager point of view, but very much from a business analysis point of view, because that's where a lot of the work had to take place in the investigation stage of the as-is. Where were we then? And now we're in a different place today. So I was the project manager, but I was also the business analyst for this year-long project, and I'm happy to be able to share it with you today. Some of the successes and some of the problems, how we overcame them, which problems still remain today. Hope to give you the highs and the lows. But first, a little bit of organisational context about the University of Manchester, because it was extremely pertinent to the job in hand. The job in hand was about file sharing, and this is a very international university. We have a 2020 vision. We want to be one of the leading universities in the world by 2020, and we have the Manchester 2020 strategy, which is the way we hope to achieve this. And we have three core goals: world-class research, outstanding learning and student experience, we sometimes call that higher learning, and social responsibility. But all these have to be enabled by quality services. And my role in this project was to ensure that that quality service was about reducing risk in the area of information management and information security. So yes, we are an international university. This slide says it's the international university. Internationalisation is a success for us, but we want to embed it even further. As it says here, a third of our 12,000 staff are from overseas. Again, that line is pertinent because this is a tool that we've provided for our staff. We are sure that the staff use it to share files with students, but the accounts are provisioned to staff only. That's within the scope of the project. So we're in contact with all those alumni, 330 degrees. And just a note, I will talk the text on the slides as much as possible for accessibility purposes, but I hope to do a lot of talking around the slides as well. And again here, we're involved in research partnerships and projects across the globe. So of course that's going to involve file sharing. Here's our research beacons. So world-class university, world-class research, but more pertinent again, world-class ideas. We're not just sharing with the person next door, in the next office, in the next faculty. We're internationally sharing ideas, so that we can develop these research beacons for translational benefits, and that's the benefits to us on the street. We have 12,000 staff here, so I'm looking at a project that needs to provide secure external collaboration for 12,000 members of staff. That makes it an enterprise level project, a university-wide project. It's infrastructural in the way the email and network is. It's no small project. And my role as business relationship manager, I'm assigned to the Faculty of Biology, Medicine and Health. That's one of three faculties at the University of Manchester. And extremely interesting to me, because here there's a lot of global research and there's a lot of information governance and information security going on. Because of course we are talking about patient data, be it anonymised or not. This faculty is working with huge experimental data sets. We're talking over 50 gigabytes a day. They need to be able to share large files, and they need to be able to do it safely and securely. As part of this faculty, we're only one of 6, I think, academic health centres in England. So we're working very closely with hospital trusts, as is the CMFT, Central Manchester, Foundation Trust, and we're working with clinical care commissioning groups as well, the CCG. There'll be more on that later. That hasn't been exactly an easy ride. So that's context. Let's look more at the Secure External Collaboration project. It was initiated in October 2015 and we deployed in October 2016. So it took a year. I don't know how you feel about a year as the duration from an IT services project, but I was told at the beginning, it'll be okay, Caroline, it's just SAS, it'll take you 6 weeks, it'll be really easy. Well, it was easy, but it wasn't simple. First off, the project was part of a larger programme, the Cybersecurity Program. It's got a programme dossier of 11 projects, and it was initiated following a review by KPMG into the cybersecurity defences of the university. The review ended with a report full of recommendations, and one of those recommendations became the mission statement for this project. The vision for the cybersecurity there as a whole, the whole 11 projects, are supposed to ensure that the university can again collaborate on world-class ideas. So you can see how this cybersecurity programme was designed to absolutely support the 2020 vision. And the cybersecurity programme looked at approaches. KPMG had actually advised this, but we knew ourselves that information governance, information management and IT security, well, it's not all about firewalls and giving people the right tools. It's about changing behaviours, and that's a long-term game and it's a long-term goal. It's quite hard to change people's behaviours in a day-to-day way, even if you give them a different tool. But we want to protect what's important. So we wanted to engage with our user base and say, your information is important to us. Can you tell us what's important to you? And do you know where that information is? How can you curate your data if you don't even know its location? And we want to give them, it says here, appropriate and simple controls. Yes, we want them to be usable and they need to be appropriate and proportionate. So therefore we will implement technical controls where they're needed and not so much where they're not needed. Again, a blanket approach was not going to be possible here, and we needed to negotiate that. And the behavioural change. Huge amounts of education and awareness campaigns to try and teach people to just look at what they're pressing, what they're handling, what they're curating, and what value does that piece of information have. So to try and stop people just thinking of it as a spreadsheet or a Word document, but thinking about the value in there. I mean, just in terms, for once, in terms of intellectual property, that's a good example. So we were part of the programme, and this was our project outcome. We want to discourage the use of ad hoc commodity file sharing tools. I always wonder what KPMG actually did find that they gave us this recommendation. I don't know. By offering a secure file sharing service for all information security classifications, I like to think of it as encouraging people to use a secure, supported, compliant service. But obviously KPMG found that people were already using other tools, and that was something we needed to find out. And there is a caveat to the term all information security classifications. Of course, I'm not referring to non-anonymised patient data that comes from NHS Digital, that was formerly called HSCIC, because then of course you don't use Dropbox, you don't pass go, you go straight to Data Safe Haven, and that was out of my scope and was in fact covered by another of the projects in the Cybersecurity Program dossier. So we were a small team. It looks like there's 3 roles, but that was 2 people. I acted myself as the project manager and business analyst, and I had a very talented solution architect to help me through the technical pieces. But during the course of the project, and I worked with 52 colleagues across IT services. This was a one IT project. So we initiated the project, or we defined the project. I don't know what project framework governance schemes you use, but we were in project definition, and we knew that we had to look at the program approach. We knew we had to look at appropriate and proportionate security, but it had to be workable, it had to be usable. And we considered how we would even start to find that kind of right balance, as you do at the start of a project. So we decided to use business analysis. We decided to first do an as-is investigation. So where are we now? And then we might be able to map a journey to where we actually want to be. And what are the staff at the University of Manchester using to share files? Are they using the tools that we currently recommend, or are they finding services for themselves? What is it that they're sharing? Who are they sharing with? Yeah, and we found a mess. And that's good, isn't it? Isaacson and Treffinger say the first stage in solving a problem is to find the mess. If you have a mess, maybe you can start to solve it. Those that find the mess are usually the ones best placed to solve it. I wasn't too unhappy with the mess. We sent out surveys to get this mess. We went out and asked questions, and we created a user group, and we tried to take people from across the organisation in terms of faculties and schools, and we also wanted people from the different themes: research, teaching and learning, PSS. We wanted the best picture we could possibly get, the richest picture, but obviously this isn't a rich picture. This really is a mess, but it was our mess, and it was the mess that our project intended to resolve. And we asked people what they were using, and they said Dropbox, Zentu, that was a local solution, Dropbox, OneDrive, Google Docs, Dropbox, encrypted cloud with Dropbox, Citric file share. We're using emails, we're using your network shares, we're using SharePoint, and we're using Dropbox, but we did see a pattern emerging here. The three largest words in the mess are Dropbox, share and research. We had made an assumption at the beginning of the project that really this was going to be a research IT tool. It was the researchers that needed to share files. Well, how wrong we were. It turned out there were many use cases and scenarios within what we call admin, we call it professional support services, and within teaching and learning. Everyone was sharing files. So yes, research was a huge element. It's our majority use case, but there are many other players too. So this investigation was proving very worthwhile. Then we decided to do a really traditional high-level requirements solicitation workshop, and this got us absolutely nowhere, because they said, well, we just want to upload a file, share the file, maybe delete the file. And I said, well, we have plenty of IT tools that can already meet that. We've got SharePoint, we've got network shares. Why are you all using ad hoc cloud services if we're already offering you tools that can fit those high-level requirements? So we knew we'd gone in the wrong direction. We needed to go back to the mess, actually. So we went back and we went to ask them about that word that kept cropping up, which was Dropbox. And we also asked Dropbox, and we said, we think, just extrapolating from the surveys, we got a good response to the surveys, but you still need to extrapolate. We asked Dropbox what they could tell us about usage at the University of Manchester. And they told us this. They said, yeah, they're really using it. They were looking at identities using the manchester.ac.uk email address identity. So we need to make a few assumptions here. Maybe people were using that email address, but they were actually just personal home files. I was one of those people. I just happened to be using my university email address, and also it included all the students, and that wasn't within the scope of this project, but still, they told us over 6,000 users were using an Manchester identity for Dropbox, and it's quite staggering. Quite a few hundred of those had actually gone past Dropbox Basic, past Dropbox Pro, and have procured themselves Dropbox Business. Now, I was pretty sure this was work-related. Over 15,000 shared folders, 20 terabytes data, and 1 million files a month. Is that what KPMG found when they did their rounds of interviews? I think they did. So we used another business analysis technique. We had not decided, and nor could we decide on Dropbox as a solution, because it's procurement that does that. It's not the PM who makes those decisions. But we needed to know why they were using Dropbox so that we could design a solution that might encourage them away from an unsupported service. So we said, why? And they said, because it's easy. And I said, well, that doesn't help me because I can't test easy, I can't measure easy, it's nebulous, it's subjective. So they said, oh, because we can use it anytime, any place, anywhere, any device, any file type, any file size, with anyone, and anyone can use it. Okay, well, this was something I could work with, because now they were giving me user requirements. So I said, any device. So they said, yeah, we want it to have native compatibility with Windows and Mac and Linux. And so we wrote that down into the non-functional compatibility requirements. They were giving us ideas of the types of availability that they wanted. So we wrote that down too. We knew what we were going to have to provide now to move people away from the ad hoc service. We then moved away from looking at tools, so we stopped asking the users about what kind of tools they were using, and they were asking them about whether they understood that they were in charge of the information that they managed. And we used an analogy of the library. So we know that the librarian looks after the books in the library. They know when the book was published, whether it's had any republishings, different versions, different editions. We know who owns the book, and we know when it arrived in the library. You know the type of thing. I mean, we used to do it just with little cards in drawers, but now it's all digitised. And we said, you need to be able to classify all your information in the same way as library has special collection areas. Do you know you need to classify all your information, because then you can create and handle it appropriately. You can't handle it appropriately if you haven't classified it first. Now, I was lucky that another one of the projects in the Cybersecurity Program was looking into giving the people tools to be able to classify their information in a really, really easy way, a lot easier than it was before. So that was an easy discussion to have. So I talked to them about tools, I talked to them about information security classification, and I thought I was on my way, but I wondered what else might be there to destabilise me. Well, what other items did I need to factor in to get the right balance between usability and security? I had my functional requirements, I had some non-functional requirements. I also needed to think about our own division, strategic principles. They told me to buy, not build. They told me to buy products that had integration. They told me to make security usable, and they told me to embrace the cloud. So again, I had to build that into the solution. And I needed to think about the business outcomes as well as the requirements. For this, I really needed to go back up to the 2020 strategy. I'd already looked at that. And I needed to look at regulatory compliance. If there was any sensitive data, and now the difference I'm talking about is the difference between something that might be highly restricted and something that's personal identifiable information, then we need to comply, as you know, with the Data Protection Act. So I knew I had to build into the service the right tool. They needed to be able to do their job, they needed to do it with the right tool, but they also needed to be compliant with the Data Protection Act. So I needed to make sure if they were going to use it with research study participants, they needed to have the correct collection notice with explicitly stating that Dropbox with servers in San Francisco was being used to curate their data. I needed to make sure that the model contract clauses, the standard contractual clauses relating to data processing that came out of Safe Harbour were in the contract. Thankfully, when I spoke to Dropbox, that was something they were happy to do. I needed to think about our own technical security standards, i.e. we often say we have a standard that says authentication needs to be federated, so any solution I built would need to have shibboleth authentication. And then people, process and technology is in bold, because at this point I knew I wasn't going to be able to just buy something that were going to fit all these requirements. I was going to need to build a PPT solution. So I went back to the people, I went back to the user group, and I said, what do you want? If we procure Dropbox based on the functional and non-functional requirements you've given us, what do you want? And they said, just don't change it, please don't change it, as much as possible. And I was really glad they said as much as possible, because I think they knew I would have to change things a little bit. But I said, yes, I'll try to make it appropriate, I'll try to make it proportionate. But they also told us about a huge variety of use cases. Do you know how many they gave me? They gave me 1,000, over 1,000 use cases. Has anybody, has any project manager ever been given that amount of use cases? It's unheard of in my career for me and for any PM I've spoken about. At some point I hope I get time to analyse those. But yeah, they were extremely, they had a lot of variety. And they also talked us about user journeys. Well, what am I going on about there? Well, what I'm talking about is you have people who might never have used Dropbox before. You might have people who have one Dropbox account. What are they going to do if they start using our service? Maybe they have 2 or more, and we knew there were people like that. So they told us about that, and so they said you're going to have to sort out those people. You can't just put a service there and assume that everyone's a new user, because we're not. And they also piloted the service for us for three months. And the pilot was pretty much successful. They gave us a lot of feedback. They were happy because they'd already using Dropbox. It's this idea of existing adoption. And whilst we were running the pilot, we actually released the access request form that we would be using when we did the full deployment, and so that we had a kind of waiting list. And we'd never done this in IT service before, and it gave kind of a drum roll. It's 4 weeks till Dropbox comes, it's 3 weeks, it's 2 weeks, and the waiting list was getting bigger and bigger. We'd not done that before, but I think we might do it again. This is the first slide from the scenarios pack. So they told us about their user journeys. I don't know if you can, it's quite small writing, but we provided knowledge base articles for people who've never used Dropbox before, who already used it with a personal email address, or they, like me, already used it but with their Manchester email address, or they had plenty of Dropbox accounts and they were doing different things with them, or whether they thought they preferred a completely different EFSS, Enterprise File Sharing and Sync tool, and I needed to persuade them to use our supported and compliant one. Now, this is a nice little power pack, but I can't show you this because I'm being recorded, but if you're interested in it after the session, I'm very happy to show it you on the laptop here. And it was process. At this point, I went to the Head of Information Governance Office and said, I'm planning on building this solution. I know they can't use it as it is, but I want the solution to be proportionate. What can I do? And they said, okay, first off, you need to do information handling guidelines, and you need to tell them that it's not for long-term file storage, it's for collaborating. So put the files up, collaborate, bring them down. Try to encourage that as much as possible. And if it's unrestricted information, we have 3 information security classifications: unrestricted, restricted and highly restricted. If it's unrestricted, they can use the service Dropbox Business as it is, and everyone was extremely happy with that. And then we moved on to restricted. At this point, nothing too onerous. We just encourage people to use the more secure sharing features that Dropbox natively has. So instead of sending folder links over into the email domain, we just say, please use shared folders. Keep everything within the Dropbox domain. If it's highly restricted, then yes, we have impacted usability because we're asking them to locally encrypt. 7-zip is the tool on their managed desktop with 256 AES encryption before they even upload it to Dropbox. But that's proportionate, that's appropriate to the classification of the data. And especially the feedback I get from users in biology, medicine, is health, is they want to look after their data as much as I'm hoping that they will using the guidelines. And how did we implement the information handling guidelines? Well, we wrote them and we made them part of the access request process. So when people asked for an account, we said, could you please read this and say that you will comply with it? And then we came to the technology, PPT. We're at the end of it now, and our solution architect put together 5 technical components. Dropbox Business, that's what the users see, that's what the users use. That is the first and foremost technical component of our file sharing solution. But we also have the new, relatively new technology, which is Cloud Access Security Broker. I'll talk about that in a second. We authenticate with Shibboleth. Dropbox can offer automated provisioning. That isn't working for us at the moment, but it's not through the fault of Dropbox. It's actually to do with the business data in our AD, and another project that we're running to implement ADFS will solve that for me for this solution. And we also package the Enterprise Sync client because we have a managed desktop estate with lockdowns. They can't install it for themselves. So yes, as well as procuring, commissioning if you like, a third-party Dropbox business, we also have a cloud access security broker. We have CloudLock. Gartner recommends the use of a cloud access security broker for your SaaS offerings as a corporation, institution, what you will. We'd never used one at the University of Manchester before, so we thought we'd do a 12-month trial. We did some soft market research on 16 products, and for our requirements and for our budget, CloudLock was the best for us. It can be extended to other SaaS, like we could plug in Office 365 if we commissioned that, and we'll review that after the 12 months to see if that's something we want to roadmap. So, time to take some stock. We rolled out the service, 6 components, not all technical in October. It's now running as a service with over 1,000 users, and they seem quite happy. Why wouldn't they be? They were already using it. And they've opted in, and virtually, I can honestly say we've hardly had any tickets raised except the ones to request access by any standards. This project, this service, this partnership is successful. We have found our balance, with a caveat for today. This is the balance that works for the University of Manchester today. But no project is 100% successful, is it? They can't possibly meet the tolerances, the objectives of time, cost and quality completely. And neither do running services, or we wouldn't have ITIL, would we? We'll be worrying about incident management, problem management, disaster recovery, service level management, which means setting lower expectations maybe. So, what happened in my project closure report? Was it full of de-scoping change requests? Was it full of accepted risks that I never should have accepted? Was it full of follow-on recommendations that were just hiding compromise? Well, let's have a look. I do have problems. And the first one was the NHS. They're blocking Dropbox at the firewall, and I'm working with their information governance teams to ask them about that. Now, I know the main reason is because the servers are in the US, but it's more than that. If they're looking at Dropbox, they're then looking at the standard terms and conditions. Well, the university doesn't have that. We have negotiated a very special higher education business agreement. It's not standard Dropbox. So we have the NHS. As I said, the automated provisioning is not working for us. It's manual for us at the moment, but we have another project coming along to solve that. And we have a problem with the US data centre in terms of confidence and trust. Now, Dropbox have a new data centre in Frankfurt, so I'm hoping to move to that. So that will make the Head of Information Governance Office really happy. Will it make NHS happy? I don't know. There may be more to that problem than meets the eye. I need to talk to them a bit more about it. And the other thing that didn't really work for us, now the account-to-account migration works seamlessly. I have to say that migration tool is very, very successful. But if there were in the University of Manchester there was a Dropbox team, it's quite a manual migration process, non-repeatable, and I look after those myself. So those are the issues which I am not hiding, as well as the successes. So what does the future hold for the service, this particular service, or maybe file sharing, content collaboration, call it what you will, at the University of Manchester? Well, I seriously think that I would like my next job to be looking at a bigger picture. I think we need to understand more about what the business are using file sharing for. And if we want services to be as self-service and automated as possible, then I think we're going to have to provide packages of tools, suites of tools that follow the journey that their data is taking, perhaps through the research data lifecycle. I need to understand the use cases more. I need to go back to those 1,000 use cases that the users gave me. I want to be able to offer them a package for their information management needs through the journey their data takes from initiation maybe of a research project to the end of it. So I can't just give them a tool because that's just a project output. It's not an outcome, and it's not adding value, and it's not got any tangible benefits associated with it. So what I want to do is model some of the most common of those 1,000 use cases and suggest tools and information handling for those common use cases and post those to the IT services website so people can go, oh, that's me, I have that type of data and that type of data, those two tools will work for me. I would like to work towards that. Now we've got GDPR coming, okay, so I made this service through the tech and the process, HE and Data Protection Act compliant, but I don't know what GDPR is going to bring. I'm looking at user space for that, I'm looking at ICO space for that, looking to migrate the data to Frankfurt, looking to review the use of a cloud access security broker. Will we move forward for that? And I would like to initiate a community of practice at UCISA because I really, really believe these questions should be looked at and not just by one university. I'm sure other universities are thinking about them too as part of their digital strategy. So lessons learned, assumptions. Do not make assumptions like this will just be a research IC tool. I spent some time going down that path and I regret it. I don't mind admitting it. And partnerships. I've had some great, useful, healthy dialogues with Dropbox. I think you can tell it has been a partnership because I'm feeding back things like, what are you going to do about GDPR? What are you going to do about Cyber Essentials? What are you going to do about the NHS? But I've also said external factors may change. I may do a personal analysis in the next 6 months that shows that actually Dropbox is no longer the EFSS tool for us. Well, what happens then? Well, they've told me what the practical steps are, and there are clauses in the contract about termination of agreement. But what I really wish I'd done, and I will learn this lesson by sharing it and by doing differently next time, I wish I'd actually set out a proper step-by-step migration plan, and I'll do this in future, and made that actually part of the business agreement. So there's me learning, there's me sharing. Thank you.